All right, Phil. Now I know it's tough. I know you've played a lot of very similar mono black decks recently, but you really have to come up with something clever for the intro or the people are gonna notice. Crap. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video, and today I want to talk about mono black. And kind of more specifically, I want to talk about sort of a splitting of the mono black decks in Legacy. If you listen to my episode of the Eternal Glory podcast from last week, you probably already know what's coming. But generally speaking, the mono black decks in Legacy are splitting into two ballparks. The first version of these deck lists is heavy on the scam side of things, with the intention of reanimating Troll of Khazad-dum or Grief on turn 1 or turn 2 as an early aggressive or disruptive threat, respectively. And these versions of the deck list are going to be playing a higher density of creatures so that they can take advantage of these aggro plays. If you play Grief on turn 1 and reanimate it and follow up by Douthie Voidwalker on turn 2, that is 6 power across 2 bodies that both have a form of evasion. And honestly, that's pretty strong. However, then there's a second category of these deck lists, these mono black lists, that are instead going in the direction of Beseech the Mirror, and they are trying to very actively primarily be a Helm of Obedience combo deck list, and you get to play 5 effective copies of Helm with Beseech the Mirror. But these decks only have so much room, and what I'm getting at here is that when you design your mono black deck, the cards are now good enough, and there's enough good cards. You have to make a real choice about how you want to design your deck list. So even though a bunch of these mono black decks are using the same core, those last 15 cards or so are going to drastically change how your matchups play out. Let's take a look at today's full deck list. Now, today's video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., Moxfield.com, and Eminence Gaming. Remember that if you need paper magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. And if you are at all interested in CEDH, please check out Eminence Gaming. They have awesome events and articles. So this is Constantine's mono black deck list. And as you can see here, with the Douthie Voidwalkers, Griefs, and Trolls, we are very much lowering our curve, and we are opting not to play a combo game here. You will notice that there are no copies of Leyline of the Void or Helm of Obedience in this deck list, despite that being a very common staple of this sort of deck list. And I want to draw your attention to the mana base here. What's missing? It's Ancient Tomb. Ancient Tomb has been a staple of a lot of these mono black deck lists, but Ancient Tomb has this problem. It doesn't cast black cards. If you want to cast Douthie Voidwalker, Hymn to Turok, hardcast Sholdreds, and heaven forbid, kick a Turok with black, Ancient Tomb doesn't produce mana for that in a meaningful way. You're just making one colorless at the cost of 2 life, which is not an appropriate legacy rate. And this deck list is even opting to have Palantir in the main deck as an additional source of card advantage / burn, kind of whichever way you want to go about thinking about that card. And to show that we have pushed in the direction of an aggro deck list, we have Hive of the Eye Tyrant here as a 3/3 creature with Menace. So despite the fact that this deck looks really similar to some other things that we played on the channel recently, it is sort of mechanically unique. I really like Constantine's sideboard here. It just knows what it's about. It knows what it's trying to beat, and it maxes out on those numbers. We are very heavy on the Plague Engineers for the creature matchups. We have a pro-white creature for the control matchups. Leyline Binding is absolutely all over the place. And you can also bring this in for combo matchups as your sort of late game finisher. And then we have sort of specifically targeted hate cards at a couple of different decks. This deck list looks great to me, and I'm really excited to see it in action. Let's battle. Okay, quick aside before we get started here. Note that the donor's name was not Constantine. There was no E on the end, so it must be Constantin. My bad about that. Okay, my opening hand is awesome if my opponent is wastelandable. If, however, my opponent were to be playing something like, I don't know, High Tide with a very large number of basic islands, this hand is not a keep. So I think I'm going to ship this one. This sure ain't great. I can keep Castle Locthwain as endgame inevitability, but this hand just plays a turn 2 Dauthi Voidwalker as the only thing it does. How do we feel about that? I don't feel great about that. I'm gonna ship. Fuck. You come in untapped? Dark Writ. 5 mana on turn 1 for Opposition Agent and Bowmasters. Yeah. Actually, I'd probably get rid of Hive and just keep the basic land. I think that's what we're into. This is some strong anti-blue propaganda we've got going on right here, which is what I'm hoping for. Okay. Please don't turn 1 me. I have a family. Also, both of these have flash. That's a thing. Are we doing this in upkeep? I feel like we're doing this in upkeep. I don't think I want to give my opponent another look at a counter spell here. I'm going to Nause. All right. Let's Opposition Agent. I'm going to do it in this order, so if my opponent brainstorms in response, I get them with Orcish Bowmasters. Pitching Lorien Revealed. We'll now floop the Bowmasters into play. Bowmasters target you. And we'll see how this goes. We're probably playing against something like Doomsday, based on what I'm seeing so far here. Oh, no play from my opponent. Now, I don't have any gas left. We mulliganed pretty aggressively. It seems like my opponent is 1 mana short of doing a Doomsday. Ooh, we might be Storm with a Bayou. It wouldn't be an Ad Nauseam Storm deck with Lorien Revealed and Force of Will, though. Well, I guess let's find out, huh? I'll do this pre-combat, I guess, in case I randomly walk into some flash creature. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, can I just take this guy as well? There's probably not a second one. I maybe just take the mana here. Leave the guy as well, stranded in hand. Opponent's at 14. I guess there's like Brainstorm to think about with that, actually. Maybe that was bad. That's cool. Alright, opponent's at 12. So my opponent could just 4 mana cast a Beseech without bargaining. But they are not doing that here. Okay, cool. That gives me access to a Sheoldred, which speeds up my clock quite a bit. So we'll Writ and drop Sheoldred. So this puts my opponent to 8, which means that they are dead on their next upkeep. They have to win this turn. They can now Beseech from 6 life. They sack that. Ooh, it is the 1 ring. That is almost good. It's very awkward with Sheoldred and Bowmasters in play. Yeah. My opponent gets protection from everything here. I will Wasteland. I just need to hit a black source here. I don't think green matters. So let's hit that. So my opponent loses no life to the 1 ring this turn. They didn't actually draw cards with it. They go to 4 off this trigger. All right. So I'll ping you. Sheoldred also makes you lose 2, putting my opponent to 1. They cannot draw another card. Oh, okay. They are trying to do things. So that's a Beseech the Mirror, sacrificing the 1 ring. Okay, a Dress Down can allow my opponent to draw more cards. Okay, that means a Ponder is safe. Storm count's only 4. I don't think I'm going to get natural stormed out here. Okay. Sure. Well, that was still surprisingly scary. So I know Jax has been working on this deck list, but I haven't seen this one specifically. Okay, so this is what the deck list here looks like. So it is 1 copy of Gaia's Will. There's an As Foretold, so you can cast the Gaia's Will if you draw it. Okay, that's a reason to have taken Gaia's Will. 1 Tendrils as the primary win condition. The One Ring can let you draw a bunch of cards. I'm going to have to watch out for Veil of Summer, Abrupt Decay. I'm going to have to watch out for these 4 cards potentially. Basically, every card that's not Plague Engineer is pretty reasonable to bring in for this matchup. My 4 Sheoldred's Edicts are out. Palantir's slow in this matchup. I don't think I need that. Can I cut Troll? Like, can I just operate on 21 lands and rituals? Probably. My Reanimates get worse. I think that's fine. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can play some more Thoughtseizes if I'm willing to go off of some of the Reanimate stuff. Grief, Reanimate, Grief is still pretty good here, but like the discard does get worse versus Veil of Summer. I go down like 2 Reanimates and just treat Grief as a pitch card that I will sometimes bring back. I don't think I'm going to fit the 4th Thoughtseize. I think I want a couple Reanimates. That's a weird one. Like, I have 2 free pieces of interaction. I'm just Mana Light, and I don't have an early play. Well, I mean, I kind of have an early play. I'm gonna fish a little harder here. Yeah, I like this a lot. Veil of Summer's weird. And there's, like, some tension with Dauthi Voidwalker Surgical Extraction, obviously. I think I keep this pitching the Turok. I'm just pretty far away from 4 mana right now. Alright. Oh shit, we're going. Okay. It is just the One Ring on turn 1. That's quite good. My opponent gets to draw their cards. I don't have a Bowmaster or Sheoldred to immediately punish, and now I can't Thoughtseize on turn 1 either. I guess Dark Ritual Dauthi Voidwalker is okay on turn 1. My curve just gets thrown off a bit here. Alright, my opponent has F6'd, so this is just resolving. At this point, do I want to Surgical a card? I don't really think so. I don't know, I guess nothing else is going in there. Let's Surgical my opponent's Dark Rituals. Just pull those out of the deck. Alright. Dark Rituals are gone. I know roughly what all I am expecting here. The Empty was something I wasn't expecting. I'm good with most of the other stuff. Okay. So we want a Bowmasters or something, because like the One Ring is going to outpace this generic discard. Sure. A Null Rod would also be pretty hot. Not gonna lie. Sure. Alright. Wasteland's not bad. So let's Thoughtseize my opponent. See if they have a Veil. They have to sack a Lotus Petal if they do. Yeah, Brainstorm's fine. A Dress Down and an Abrupt Decay. That's 2 different answers to this. I will be taking their Dress Down here, as I'm about to take out one of their green or black mana. So we'll Wasteland that drop. Send Dauthi Voidwalker to work. So Dauthi Voidwalker plus the damage from the One Ring is going to add up. We've taken my opponent off of Dark Ritual specifically. The graveyard is temporarily off, although my opponent has had 2 different answers to Dauthi Voidwalker, so like this probably isn't sticking around. We'll see if that decay happens immediately or if my opponent has other plans. Alright, yeah, decay is happening. So at this stage, my 1-for-1 discard is not going to keep up with what my opponent is doing. And we've got to clock my opponent. They may end up discarding some cards, which would be cool to grow Turok. If I draw a black card, I can pitch cast Grief to make my opponent discard 1 next turn. But it's not unreasonable, yeah, that my opponent will just find an answer to my creature in all of the various cards that they just drew. Sure. Yep, we're very happy to have this again. My opponent has used Decay, and Thrust Down. So the Gaia's Will-based stuff is off if this... Wow, it did resolve. Did not get Force of Willed. So my opponent needs to win the game this turn or otherwise answer Dauthi Voidwalker. See if it happens. Opponent's got resources. Like, they have 12 cards. It is not unreasonable for my opponent to just natural storm me out here. Or cast another One Ring. Okay, there's a Dress Down answering Douthie Voidwalker. And we'll see if my opponent can storm off from here. I expect the answer is, like, wholeheartedly just yes. I don't have it yet. Alright. Here come the rituals. Second Cabal. Alright, that is a new copy of the One Ring. My opponent not winning this turn? Okay, there's a Beseech the Mirror. Douthie Voidwalker is now on. Okay, yeah, that's fine. They're just going to empty. Sure. My opponent has protection from everything. I could Beseech the Mirror. I don't have a Plague Engineer in. Man, that would be savage. This 4 to activate. I think I just played Dark Ritual into Grief. Alright, so there we go. I have 6 power in play. That kills my opponent next turn, in theory. Opponent goes down to 5. Sure. Am I going to pull off a win here? Like, it feels possible. I'm not saying that I'm favored, because I very much do not feel like I am, but I look to be alive. So this needs to be what? The 3rd copy of the One Ring? And then they sacrifice 1 to Legend Rule, and then I cast their copy of the One Ring. And things are all sorts of weird. Okay, yep. Yeah, so that's in exile. Alright, so my opponent sends those at me. I can block 1 point of damage here. Alright. My opponent has protection from everything right now. I really needed another creature there. I guess I can just get another land drop next turn and it's okay. So, sack this. I think the One Ring is better than trying a random draw 3 here. Alright, my opponent draws some cards. Sure. My opponent has countered. That's bad. Oh, hey, look, they're at 3 life. I've got them. Oh no, what happened? How could this be? Yeah, we get run over by goblins. That was a super interesting game. Like, that was a really cool start to this league. All right, we will now go to a game 3. Dress Down's a hell of a drug. Maybe these Turoks are not as good as I think they are. In this matchup specifically. I think when I'm on the play, I want to be able to reanimate grief more commonly. Like, do I put a Plague Engineer in the deck for the random line that potentially came up this game of cast my opponent's Beseech, go get Plague Engineer to stop Empty the Warrens? I don't think so. Alright, turn 1, Thoughtseize my opponent. Turn 2, Bowmasters with Opposition Agent coming not too long after that. This is reasonable. I have more aggressive hands for sure, but I don't know that I want to go super, super deep versus a Force of Will deck that can just stuff my first play anyway. Alright. My opponent mulliganed once, which definitely helps me as well. I'm somewhat surprised my opponent did not just Force of Will to protect turn 2, the One Ring. Yeah, I think I'm just taking their ring here. That opens me up to surgicaling that if I draw a surgical, which is pretty cool. And if my opponent casts the Ponder this turn, they might drop Force of Will, meaning that my Bowmasters just resolves. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. All right, no shuffle. They like what they've seen. This is Swamp specifically, so that is a non-bow. This may keep me from casting my 3-drop next turn. And I think I just sorcery speed this. Like, my opponent has Force of Will. I don't know whether or not they have a blue card. There's 2 unknown cards. I'm happy with a 2-for-1 here. Pitching a Force of Will. Got it. So my opponent currently does not have an artifact for the purposes of Beseech the Mirror. Sure. They may or may not have Bayou anymore. Dark Ritual's still probably over there. Okay. This is a little awkward, because Opposition Agent is 100% the card that I would like to play this turn. But it's not the card that I get to play. I pull a Swamp out of my deck so that I can get black to drop Douthie Voidwalker. Yep. So we'll see if my opponent still has Bayou. If they have Bayou, Abrupt Decay is live for Douthie Voidwalker. Alright. It is the One Ring. We did not find a window to surgical that, unfortunately. Yep. Alright. Yeah, that's one turn too late. I almost want to just surgical Force of Will and resolve Opposition Agent here. I don't think I am going to do that. I think I'm just going to Sorcery Speed this. Wasteland the Underground Sea. Yeah, I think I'll pass the turn holding up the surgical. And now we would like to draw something that stops the One Ring that is currently in play. Sure. That is a Dress Down. You got it. That can allow my opponent to use a fetch land, which is what I'm guessing they're trying to do here. Sure. They're getting their searching in now. Alright, Dress Down gets sacrificed. So, this is so much to activate. Yeah. Nothing fun in exile. I kind of want to surgical the One Ring now that my opponent has drawn a few more cards, and now that hard casting one of these is reasonable. But if I do that, it messes with my ability to stop an actual combo finish. So there's some weird tension there. I think I am going to surgical the One Ring. All right. One Ring, One Ring, One Ring. Opponent's got empty in hand and a Dress Down. They don't have Force of Will currently. I guess that means casting this is reasonable at sorcery speed. And we'll see if my opponent can use their Dress Down to shut off these abilities and kill me, or otherwise produce enough goblins to block. Okay, Ponder is good. I wonder if Hive of the Eye Tyrant not being Swamp costs me this game. Like, not deploying Opposition Agent a turn earlier is a huge deal. Okay, there's another cantrip. Now means it's hard to Dress Down. And Beseech combo is currently off the board with double Opposition Agent in play, and Douthie Voidwalker for that matter. Alright, opponent's making some moves. Let's see if they figured something out. Like, they can still cast a ritual, like a Dark Ritual, use Petal and one of the Dark Ritual mana to Dress Down, and then attempt to combo from there. But the Lotus Petal would go to exile. I think making life pretty tough to combo off. Alright, oh, geez, it's another Ponder. That's no shuffle. Okay, yeah, but it's no outs either, it looks like. That was an awesome game of Magic. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. All right, my opponent's a fan of the channel. We'll see if they're still a fan of the channel after I grief them on turn 1 and then reanimate it. Oh, shit, my opponent went to 5? Oh, I'm a bully. I don't need to think about this much because I'm just going to take the other one in a second. So, reanimate grief. Take the Emery. Our opponent is fully on the ouch vibes. Please play your basic island first. Don't play the Ottawa. Don't let me just wasteland that land and send you into true despair. Alright. So they've just got to cycle that Bobble immediately. My opponent saw a swamp. Okay, they did play their island out first. That's very good. And we're going to crash in for 3. I get to now shut off their graveyard for future Emery purposes. And I will probably wasteland Ottawara next turn. My opponent's double mulligan was a tough... Oh no. Okay. So we'll ship on in there. I imagine my opponent will bounce one of these creatures and just give up some points of damage here. Or rather, prevent some points of damage. Oh, they don't? Sure. I'll wasteland the Urza Saga. Alright, what about an end of turn bounce? Oh no, the Desperation draw a card. How do I feel about that? Like, is the card more important than the 3 life gain? Hard to tell, because they are in such a bad spot. Well, I mean, Emery can replay an Urza's Bauble or a Patchwork Automaton once, I guess. That's pretty respectable. I will take your goddamn Patchwork Automaton from your graveyard. Oh, it's so rude. Alright, my opponent is at 5. I will reanimate your Patchwork Automaton so that you can't cast it as a blocker. That was rough. So, Null Rod is an easy slam it. Like, card's good. Plague Engineer is okay. I don't know that I want Surgical or Damping Field. I guess I'm going to figure out what I don't want from my main deck. Opposition Agent's not super strong here. My opponent doesn't search much except for Urza Saga. So this is probably the thing that's going. That gets me 2 Null Rods, 2 Plague Engineers, which probably go on Thopter most of the time, but can go on Patchwork Automaton, literally an Automaton. Is that its creature type? I think so. Yeah, this feels pretty good. Like, I could think about some of this sort of stuff as well, or Surgicals. I am lukewarm on both. I've got a bit of a tough choice here. If I take turn 1 off and play Wasteland and then cycle it for a Swamp on turn 2, I just have 5 mana. But 5 mana doesn't get me to 2 of these spells as of right now, so I think this hand is a little bit awkward, and I'm just going to mulligan, especially considering that I have some really powerful things in the matchup, like Orcish Bowmasters and Null Rod. This is fine. I probably keep this pitching Grief and hoping to play a reasonable, fair game of Magic. Okay, cool. We didn't see one of their more aggressive openers, which is really great for me. I'll just go ahead and pass the turn here. 3 Bowmasters is a little rude for this matchup. But my opponent's on a great counter to Bowmasters. That does have Ward too, by the way, so Bowmasters just doesn't get to immediately take that out. This is live because this is an artifact land. Wasteland's a great draw, Edict's a good draw. Let's just go ahead and Swamp Cycle that. Let's see what we draw for turn. A Plague Engineer. You're a little late at stopping Patchwork Automaton, unfortunately. How am I winning this game? I don't think I'm racing my opponent, so I think it's playing Hate Permanence. I'm just going to try to do this before they find Force of Will. And Plague Engineer can trade with a Construct or an Urza Saga token, but I'm definitely going to need some removal here. I'm just kind of behind. No block, I think. Also, what are you? Oh, you are a Construct. Convenient. Inconvenient, though, is Hive of the Eye Tyrant being worse than Swamp for the second time this league, because now I can't play Plague Engineer on Construct this turn. That's like legitimately pretty bad here. I'm gonna hold back blockers here. I might be trading a couple of bodies for a creature. Active Aether Spellbomb could make that tough, though. Being on the draw is bad. I think that was my biggest play mistake this game, was being on the draw. We should have avoided that. Should have played around it. Grafdigger's Cage, sure. So, man, Spellbomb makes this all tough. I can't just throw 2 or 3 bodies in front of this and expect it to work. So I think the way that I do this is chump block here, take 3, go to 14, redeploy one of these, and create a new chump blocker for next turn. And we can repeat this process with Bowmasters a few times. All right. I'll cycle this to pick up a new land. And then I think we just Plague Engineer on Construct, and then I can at least trade for one of these. How many Plague Engineers do I have in? All of them? Metallic Rebuke is rough. Okay. Now this is fine. It's not fine. I think this is probably the point where I just concede. I think I was worse off if my opponent got Shadow Spear though, rather than Grafdigger's Cage. Am I taking 11 here? No, I think it's better to take 3. All right. Oh, okay, they're just going to Spellbomb that out of the way. Sure, that's reasonable. Oh, God. All right. Okay, you win. You win. That's enough. Okay, I do have 2 more Plague Engineers that I can bring in. Do I want them? I could see one being better than Palantir. My opponent's going to aggressively fetch Grafdigger's Cage. Reanimate gets worse. I'm going to pull 1 Reanimate. Alright, so I can grief my opponent on turn 1. I don't have a Reanimate. I don't have any black mana. And Null Rod's good, but it's not keep 1 colorless mana good. Okay, this is great. So I need Wasteland. Can I just throw back a Swamp here? Like, is that reasonable? Could also throw back Grief. I don't know. I really want to grief my opponent on probably my turn 2 to pave the way for Null Rod working. I'm going to keep this and pitch a Swamp. I think I'm supposed to Swamp Cycle the Troll. Giving up the Shouldered sucks a little bit. Alright. So the goal is my opponent plays out a bunch of artifacts, and then I just resolve Null Rod and win. Yes, that's fine. That does mean that cycling the Troll is significantly less good. Maybe I don't cycle the Troll now. Yeah, I think I don't cycle the Troll now that, like, the body being in the graveyard doesn't matter as much. Okay, sure. So you draw your card. Well, I know what I'm pitching to grief now. It's not Troll anymore. It is a copy of Shouldered. Alright, what do you got over there? Metallic Rebuke and Kappa Cannoneer. That is actually incredibly awkward, isn't it? Specifically since my opponent has Island. That's awkward. Because, man. Oh, this really messes me up. Okay, I have to change my play pattern a bit. So I take Metallic Rebuke. I now have to Wasteland my opponent. I'll just do this now. I'll Swamp Cycle this. Pick up a Swamp. And I can Null Rod next turn. And I just need to dodge a 0-cost artifact for a turn. And then maybe I end up stopping both. Alright. So Null Rod occurs, doing a lot of damage to my opponent. Oh, I'm super happy with this. I am super happy that my opponent cracked that, because that's a mana rock for Kappa Cannoneer gone. Oh, wow. Brutal. So my opponent's 2 unknown draws were both Force of Wills. Okay, sure. Alright. So I'm definitely scared in the position that I am currently in. Like, my opponent just needs a 0-cost artifact or land to be able to Kappa Cannoneer, and that will outrace what I am doing in all likelihood. But we have gotten a little lucky. We have dodged. Opponent's at 14, and I'll cast an Orcish Bowmasters in their upkeep. If they have Force of Will blue card, I want them to be put in the situation where they potentially have to give up Kappa Cannoneer if they force. Alright, Kappa is coming. And we just have to see if we can race it. It's possible. Like, it very easily could go either way. We'll swing on in. Opponent's at 10. A card like Dark Ritual matters so much for me right now. Like, the ability to deploy a Shouldered is very important. Alright, that's 3 mana. What is this? It's something with a weird cost, because my opponent is, like, doing an undoing mana. Chalice? Okay, yeah, it's a Chalice on 2 to stop another Bowmaster from coming in. Alright, so this is unblockable. Hits me for 6. Fuck, that was a good play. So I hit my opponent for 5 this turn. Just confirm. Yeah. So I hit my opponent for 5. Putting them to 5. My hope is that I can force them to hold back Kappa Cannoneer I need them to not have a creature that they can play out and block. Oh no, do they have a 2-drop? Ah, damn it. It is Emery. That is one of the like very specific cards that I needed my opponent not to have. Okay. This is... Alright, Edict. Edict. Oh, holy shit, it's Edict. Alright, so... Sacrifice a non-token creature. Oh my god, it's a 2-mana card! Fuck! No. Okay. I'm deterministically dead. Make Urza Saga token, activate Emery, target this, cast this. That's the 8 damage. Yeah, the Chalice on 2 won my opponent the game. I'm going to make them see it. 1 mana for a Lotus Petal doesn't change anything here. I gotta draw 2. Yeah, not so much. Yeah, I'm gonna make my opponent see it. I think it's pretty obvious. Alright, opponent is choosing to draw a card. Means I get a Bowmaster ping. Putting my opponent to 1. Again, though, I don't think this matters. Okay, so there's 7. Emery is 8 or Construct is 8. My opponent's got lethal 2 different ways. Damn. Alright, there's 8. Alright, so my opponent gets the match. One thing that I could have done differently is about 2 turns ago, on the turn where my opponent played their Emery, I could have held back a token on that turn to block Kappa Cannoneer if my opponent misses an artifact that turn. But because my opponent was exactly at 10, I did need like 2 cycles of this full damage. So I am happy with the play that I took. Okay, my opening hand here has no mana sources, so this is not gonna do it. Okay. That's a weird one. So on turn 1 we have 5 mana, so like it's Dark Rit, Sheoldred, and if Sheoldred gets countered, I just fucking reanimate it afterwards. I think that's a reasonable keep. We are randomly playing against a cantrip deck, so like that's cool. Ooh. Yes. Let's go. Daze. Sure. Alright, that buys you a turn. Basic Island comes back. I'll do it again. Dark Ritual. I think I just cast the Sheoldred this turn, because I can cast Sheoldred and then a Bowmasters for the next 2 turns afterwards. Like, there's some real desire to want to wait till my opponent's turn, cast Dark Ritual and Bowmasters twice to play around a single counterspell. But then the Sheoldred just gets stuck in my hand. Like, this way, if I draw a swamp, I just get to go Bowmaster. Fuck you! I just get to go Bowmasters into Reanimate. Oh, that's so rude. I'm unhappy. Okay. Cast Bowmasters. Ping you. Wasteland your black source. I just got maximum punished this game. Okay, yep. I will reanimate that on my own turn, assuming you do not reanimate it first. Ugh. My own cards are so good. I will absolutely just gain 4 life here. That's fine with me. Okay, cool. No reanimate. That's a big deal. I think I do this now. Let's reanimate this. I don't love this attack, but I'm really far behind, so I think I have to make it. Sure, I sacrifice the Bowmasters. Okay. Sheoldred's so good. Okay. My opponent's gonna sit back and attempt to bleed me out. So I think I have to start turning the troll sideways and then try to do cool Bowmaster things. Upkeep before my opponent has another look at a daze, because this is a chump blocker. That's what this is. Like, this orc token exists to chump block. Oh. Yep. Yeah, these Sheoldred bleed triggers are brutal. All right. I'm just not keeping pace up with my own creature here. Like, the troll is not a 3-turn clock when my opponent gains 2 life a turn off Sheoldred. Mystic Sanctuary is real good. Sure. So I am forced to chump block, and I will need to draw another creature or a dark ritual in order to stay competitive in this game, which I did not. So I can't attack anymore. I have to block the Sholdred, which has Death Touch. I also think my opponent has Force of Will. Like, they're not deploying cards. They've got to have some sort of Force of Will or Daze or something. And the bad news is, like, this play also just kills me. We're going to play as if my opponent is bad, though. Do I want to play as if my opponent is bad? Or do I want to try to spike an Edict? I'll try to spike an Edict. Alright, my opponent let me draw the card. Yep. Yeah, my situation's awful. So now if my opponent just doesn't attack, I'm dead. Sure. Alright, we can move on from here. That was rough. So I am like in the market for just generic Death Touch creatures. Like this on Orc is really good. And then I like decide if I want to try Surgical. I don't think so. What don't I want? This is a little awkward versus Bowmasters. This is a little slow on the draw, and my opponent operates pretty well on low resources. I'm also, I think, going to make this substitution. I don't know, if Turek dies to Bowmasters, if it doesn't get any extra value. Try something like this. Castle Locthwain is worse than Swamp for the third time this league. Or, hold on, I think it was the other utility land. Like, if this is basic Swamp, this hand is pretty great, honestly. But it's not, so it has to be a mulligan. Utility lands are not free. How was this one? This one's fine, I just pitch one Thoughtseize. I'm not, like, super excited about this hand, though. We'll see how it goes. Daze, Grief, Brainstorm. God damn it! Why am I not playing more basic swamps? Fuck. Okay. I'm gonna take my opponent's brains. I'm gonna take their Daze. I'm so screwed. Everything that I know and love is going to get wastelanded. Yeah. That's a cruel joke, honestly. Grab Swamp and pass. So one of those wastelands is gone. Well? Okay. We've got plans. I think I cast Reanimate, targeting the Troll, and then try to flash in a Brainstorm, or Bowmasters in response to a Brainstorm. Yep. Okay, cool. So I'll cast the Bowmasters. Oh wow, things are working. It's so rare that you actually get to do this in Legacy. It's the Bowmaster dream, but it doesn't happen all that often, because people are playing around it. Triggers. The opponent's at 15 after those resolve. We'll see if this gets forced. Gets surgicaled. My opponent did opt to go the surgical route. I think that's pretty reasonable. We have a decent-sized body in play. My opponent is potentially Brainstorm locked. Okay, there's a shuffle, so they only had to redraw one of the two cards from Brainstorm. Got basics too, so I don't get to Wasteland. I don't think I use that right now. I can use it to play around Daze. Sure. Alright, my opponent's at 12. I honestly just want to play this out at sorcery speed. Force Pitch Ponder. Got it. So I'm low on gas here. I have a Bowmasters in play. That counts for a lot in a black matchup. But, like, my opponent's Reanimate can hit a Bowmaster and kill my Bowmaster. Or alternatively, just ignore that and put a Troll in play and kill me in 3 turns. Either path probably leads to victory for them. Okay, yeah, they are going to go for the kill the Bowmasters plan. And then they've got a land drop. Well, this is really damn good. Dark Ritual. Cast the Plague Engineer. It goes on Orc. That kills both of those. And I can decide whether or not I want to wasteland my opponent. I think I am not going to. Like, my opponent can operate pretty well on low resources, and it's just like hard casting Grief and doing something like Sauron's Ransom that really requires the 3rd or 4th mana. A little bit later on, we can start thinking about land counts. What did that ponder do? That was no shuffle. Okay. We can start thinking about land counts for something like Mystic Sanctuary, but we're not there yet. Send them. 7. I'm nervous here. I don't feel good. Sure. Finding an Underground Sea. I think I'm going to keep my mana. I would like to be able to answer a troll or whatever. All right, there's Hardcast Grief. I'll let it hit play. Sacrifice a non-token creature. Get that creature out of the way. I can't tell if my opponent has Daze as their last card or if they're just mad. But we're going to be aware of Daze as a possibility. All right. It's my opponent to 5. I think I am not going to Wasteland. I want to be able to draw a Swamp and then play Doughty Voidwalker around a Daze that my opponent potentially has. Sure. What Reanimate targets are there? Grief keeps my opponent alive. Bowmasters, it doesn't really count. The Reanimate is valuable. The Brazen Borrower is the most valuable thing here. Probably need to split Reanimate and Brazen Borrower. I think I think I split it like this. Maybe like this? Do you take the Reanimate and go to 1? There is also my opponent potentially holding this until 6 mana. This card is so hard to play against. What if I do something? What if I invert it? What if I show them the Brazen Borrower to make them think that this pile is even better when this is the pile that I don't like that I want them to take? Let's do that. Okay, they took the Brainstorm Reanimate pile. Sure. All right, cool. So this puts my opponent to 3, making the Reanimate pile worse. I've got an Edict available for a blocker. You may absolutely Reanimate Orcish Bowmasters. You may deal 1 damage to something at the cost of 2 life. Ah, Fatal Push. Reasonable. They do end up getting an Orc. I don't think I Edict that here. It's just like much more valuable on a scarier creature later, and I can pick like token versus non-token. Yep. So I guess I'll do this now. Yep. Base. All right, good stuff. My opponent's Fatal Push line was really cool. I thought they were just conceding in a fun way, but no, they had relevant things to do. So now it's like, do I want to play Surgical when I'm on the draw? I don't really want to draw that card in the end game. I think I don't want to be on that card. Maybe I have to be, but I don't want to be. You're so much worse than basic Swamp. I'm going to keep this hand. I think it just has a good amount of gas, and I'm going to just respect that. It is not the best versus Wasteland. It's very good versus Discard. Very good versus Bowmasters. All right. So there's an Underground Sea. Are you going to just Reanimate immediately? You are. I've got an Edict for that. If you can't back it up by counter magic. This is a weird one. Do I wait a turn and take 6 to play around Daze effects and Force of Will, but play into Wasteland? 6 is a lot of life, but Daze and Force of Will and potentially even Force of Negation is a lot. I think I am willing to play around it. Let's see what's going on. None of that. Could have gone for it safely. Brainstorm is going to mean that my opponent gets a couple looks at stuff. Probably take one of the Brainstorms still. Like, I could take the Brazen Borrower and Reanimate it, but I don't think that's the real plan. Ooh, a Ponder. That gets 4 looks at Wasteland or Force of Will. That's incredibly good here. The 3 looks from Brainstorm were already going to be good. And they did take all 4 looks. All right, I'm at 12. Sure. My best draw is just a basic Swamp. Yeah, that's brutal. That's one of the things we wanted to play around. Okay. Well, Sacrifice a non-token creature. I unfortunately can't just immediately reanimate it, which is a thing that I would love to do. And that's the third land to deploy a Brazen Borrower. Oh, do we have a Murktide Regent here? That's rough. Another discard spell off the top, please, because these boys don't jump very well. Fuck. Dead in 2 swings. Even if I just get hit once, Brazen Borrower's pretty bad. Can't play this. Yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Yeah, I think I'm going to lose this one for my decision to take a turn off to try to play around 8 different spells. I just have, I don't have a discard spell to take Brazen Borrower out of their hand to block, and even if they did, they would flash cast it in. Nothing here. Yeah, we're donezo. That was a great game of Magic. So I have a reasonable opening hand that makes a troll on turn 2. However, my opponent is mulliganing to 5, which may mean that I have the wrong sort of hand. If my opponent is just on a combo deck, they're gonna get me. All right, they have kept. I do have to be very conscious of my land drops here. I have to play Hive of the Eye Tyrant on turn 2 while it still enters untapped. And then I can play Castle Locthwain at some point afterwards. Fuck. No. Don't kill me. Oh, that's fine. Yes. Why did my opponent play Lotus Petal prior to Patchwork Automaton? That feels like a mistake. Unless there's some weird counterspell or something over there that makes that actually make sense. Which there could be. Am I still reanimating or am I just killing this? I think I'm just reanimating. Let's shove. All right, it's in play. I can swamp cycle another one of these to just have land drops for days. And then I can get rid of Patchwork Automaton comfortably after that. My opponent has Ancient Tomb, so they're already on a 3-turn clock to the troll. 4 mana for a Thought Monitor. Absolutely. Opponent gets to draw 2. That means that might eat it to Sheoldred's Edict rather than Patchwork. We'll see, though. Evasion is a thing that matters. All right. So they can look at that card, and then I will just shuffle it away with Troll so they don't actually know. Swamp Cycle. Grab a swamp. I'd love a Dark Ritual to just be able to cast this Sheoldred right now. More Sheoldred instead. Sure. Why don't you sacrifice a non-token creature? Bam. Oh, that's scary. I'm still putting the pedal to the metal and attacking, but I could, in theory, take a lot of damage if my opponent's draws are ideal. My opponent goes to 9. They're not dead if they tap their Ancient Tomb next turn, but they will be if I draw a Bowmasters. Or if they tap Ancient Tomb and I resolve a Sheoldred, they're also dead. There's also just this. It is possible that we will end up activating this, but again, 4 mana is basically infinite mana. Well, I should say 4 mana in addition to this, which is really 5. All right, do you have 0-cost artifacts to follow that up? Because it's scary if you do, and okay if you don't. All right, cool. All right. So, we're going to crash in. Unquestionably, we're going to crash in. And it's just a question of, how does my opponent handle this? Do they go to 1 and risk dying to a handful of things? Negative. Okay, so I get to decide how I do this here. I think Psy is probably the scariest thing in play. So I think I'm killing these 2 and leaving them with Patchwork Automaton. All right. All right. And now we're going to attempt to drop a Sheoldred. I wouldn't be surprised if my opponent has Force of Will. Negative. They've got something in hand that is not a 0-cost artifact. We know that much, because they would have played them out last turn. That means things like Force of Will, Metallic Rebuke, Kappa Cannoneers not playable. Would be 1 mana artifacts. Oh no, Ancient Tomb is not the land that my opponent wants right now. Okay, that's it. All right, so I would like Null Rods here. And my opponent has explicitly shown me Psy, making Plague Engineer pretty darn good. My discard stuff is very medium versus a pile of draw 2s. My opposition agents, again, are also not great. I think opposition agent is the first thing to go here for these. I want the full playset of these, I think. Palantir seems reasonable, but slow for being on the draw. I don't know, maybe I'm not supposed to play these. Like, I keep the grief to do the scam thing. Reanimating an opponent's like Kappa Cannoneer is perfectly reasonable just as a 5/5. Thoughtseize helps with that. I don't know, let's try something like this. I don't think I like this. This is too much mana, not enough business. Damn it, Castle Locthwain, you piece of shit. Like, if this is a swamp, we have turn 1, Dark Ritual, Doughty Voidwalker, Grief, Reanimate. Fuck! How many swamps? How many basic swamps do I have to draw to? 13. So 13 out of 53 times, I have an insane turn 1. Otherwise, I have an insane turn 2. I'm going to say that's fine and risk it here. It feels a little bad, though. Anyway, can you tell that I have an agenda that basic lands are good and mana-based stability is one of the most important things to a successful legacy deck? Just in case that hasn't been clear over the course of this league. Okay, sure, that's very good. All right. Negative. Am I still griefing this turn? I believe so. We can do the whole reanimation thing next turn. Although the plan has probably changed to Null Rod and Reanimate. Oh wow, Grief gets a 2-for-1. I'm fine with that. What is important enough here that my opponent would want to protect it with Force of Will? Not Ancient Tomb. Is it just a second Force? No, that doesn't make sense. Something like Sigh? That would reasonably make sense. Alright. Dark Ritual. Reanimate. Target Grief, hoping to pave the way for the Null Rod to actually resolve. Fairy, yes, that's fine. Alright, so unless my opponent's final card is like a Metallic Rebuke, this Null Rod just resolves. And is damn good. Sure. It's in play. Would you force a will to protect a fairy? That seems weird to me. Sure. So this Urza Saga doesn't actually succeed in making any tokens here. See what my opponent gets. That is a Haywire Might. Unfortunately, its activated ability can't be activated as of right now. Nor does my opponent have green mana. So now I am just looking to play some creatures, turn them sideways before my opponent finds a bunch of artifacts and like a Kappa Cannoneer or something that can turn this game around for them. More lands, like another land and then an Urza Saga could be very good, but it looks like this Null Rod might just steal this game. Get in there. Cool. My opponent paused. I thought for a second they might have a Dismember, but they didn't fire it off. We've got a 3-turn clock now with multiple Doughty Voidwalkers. Okay, so this is a misplay on my opponent's end. They did this in a way where the Dismember ends up in exile under Doughty Voidwalker. Wait, is that always happening? Hold on. No, that's always happening, isn't it? JK. But I think if you're usually going to fire off Dismember, like doing that in combat is pretty reasonable if I've got one card left. Interesting. I'm going to send in with this. Opponent's at 9. I'm going to play Plague Engineer. I think I just put it on Thopter. Like, I could kill their Might, but that actually gains them life. So I think I am just going to make Sigh worse. That's an artifact land, so that's not producing mana. Troll's not super strong here. Fine attacking with both. I guess my opponent could have Orcish Bowmasters, making a Plague Engineer attack a little weird. Not this time, though. Alright. I will go ahead and Swamp Cycle this. Grab a swamp. Play a swamp. Pass the turn. Alright, and we win that one. GG's. Alright, what are we looking at here? 2 land drops. Bowmasters into Bowmasters. I have a Grief on turn 1 and can do a Troll Cycle. This is not the upper power level of what my deck is capable of. I think it is fine. Am I going to Wasteland that Tundra? Maybe. If this is a control deck, it's great to do that. I think I'm just going to Wasteland and not Grief yet. I think that's my plan. I just don't think I want to tip my hand yet that I am on black. A new Tundra. Okay, do I want to Grief this turn? Probably. The Sheoldred is the slowest card here by a pretty considerable amount, so I think I am okay doing this. We are getting the Brainstorm in response to hide some cards. Alright, let's see what's going on over there then. Okay, it is a Cephalid Breakfast deck with a very resilient hand. I kind of want to take the counterspell here. It makes my Orcish Bowmasters more live. With 2 cantrips and a step through in hand, I think attacking like the redundancy of the hand doesn't make a lot of sense. Especially with 1 or 2 cards hidden on top that are probably pretty reasonable. Sure, and that can take one of them if my opponent wants. And Urza Saga, that's something that I don't want to see right now, as I've already burned one of my copies of Wasteland. And my opponent grinding me out with copies of Urza Saga is just reasonable. This is a tough turn. This is a really tough turn. I think I am supposed to just sorcery speed play Orcish Bowmasters to best play around my opponent's cantrips. I can then play Opposition Agent prior to my opponent. Oh, fuck, that's really good. That gets me to 5 mana. So I can play Opposition Agent and Orcish Bowmasters this turn. Send them. Yeah, this is the trap. So I let my opponent make the construct. I go Dark Ritual. Play Bowmasters. Bowmasters, ping that construct out of the way. Increasing the power of this, and then we use our floating mana to play Opposition Agent, which shuts off this Urza Saga search. And my opponent now is facing down 3 different relevant hate bears, with a Grief coming next turn as well. That's 7 power. Yep. That was brutal. That lined up really well for me. Taking that Daze early on was probably a critical decision. All right, and now we get into the how the fuck do I sideboard versus Cephalid Breakfast game that I think is just fucking impossible. I think this deck is so hard to sideboard against because you have to respect a fair beatdown plan as well as a game-ending combo. And like every time you draw something like a Surgical Extraction, it is just terrible against a couple of onboard Urza Saga construct tokens or a Stoneforge Mystic, for example. I think I like the idea of Plague Engineers. It can kill opposing creatures. Sorry, I should clarify that. Like, of course it does. Like, it can kill creatures with its -1/-1 ability, or it can just be a chump blocker for an Urza Saga construct token, so it does fight against both sides of what my opponent has going on. Torok is really good if my opponent shifts into control mode. I don't know that that's going to be the average way this plays out. I think I'm going down that. Kind of want to go down some Reanimates. Like, Grief, Reanimate, Grief is really good, but all the cards in my deck do relevant things. Sheoldred included. I could go like down a Sheoldred and down a couple Reanimates without necessarily cutting anything. I could also cut the Sheoldreds and just turn Opposition Agent and Plague Engineer into my top end when I'm on the draw specifically. I think I'm okay with that. Let's try that. Yes, this hand is reasonable. The Reanimate is not doing much of anything right now, but I get to select one of these as a turn 1 play. Unless I want to play around Daze, then I can wait until turn 2. Underground Sea. Cabal Therapy resolves. Dark Ritual, I think, is a really good name. but my opponent might have a more pointed plan, like just naming, say, Grief or Thoughtseize. Yeah, they're going for Thoughtseize, and they whiff. Ooh, I think I just Dark Ritual Opposition Agent at sorcery speed. If I had another swamp, I would consider just wastelanding my opponent here. But I just like physically cannot operate on one land. Sorry, I didn't say that well. So, okay, cool. That's great. I think order of operations is Thoughtseize right now to better play around Fatal Push. Cephalid Illusionists. I'll take one. We'll take out a land. We'll hit for 3. Opponent's at 17. I have a Plague Engineer coming. Sure. Great, that is exactly what I wanted. We'll crash in for 3 more damage. I don't think I reanimate one of those. I feel like that could accidentally backfire. So let's not. Urza Saga is very good. This is exile a card. Okay, yeah. Got it. A Dark Ritual on my end. Yep. Let's crash in for my 3 damage first. Opponent's at 11. This is a Cephalid Wizard, so we will name Wizard, assuming this resolves. All right, fantastic. And we have Reanimate to back up either one of these getting destroyed. All right. Take your cycle. Now my opponent could very reasonably draw a land and be able to make some Urza Saga Construct tokens, but I would get to control their search a little bit later on. That's a tapped Mystic Sanctuary. That land coming in tapped means that my opponent does not get an Urza Saga token this turn, which is honestly a huge deal. Cool. So I will bash in for 5. Opponent's at 6. I've got another opposition agent that I'll plan on flashing in at their end of turn. Yep. All right, they've got a Teferi Time Raveler. They don't have access to white. I'll take their Shuko. I think this game is close enough to over that I don't need to take a screenshot. They're on Stone Forges. Memory Journey is a thing. 2 Bowmasters. Okay. Got it. Oh, I see. They can Jack-o'-lantern to get access to white. Sure. For a prismatic ending, I will respond with an opposition agent. And we've gotten the GGs from the opponent here. We end up with a positive record of a 3-2. So how are we feeling about today's video here? Honestly, I feel like we just played some good, clean Magic today. I felt like the games were really intricate, and I feel like the deck list that I played was relatively solid. Palantir didn't necessarily have a strong showing today. I sideboarded it out a decent amount, either for being slow or because we were playing against Bowmaster decks. Like my biggest critique of the deck list is just the 4 black utility lands that cost me a lot of percentage points. Like, I never activated a Hive of the Eye Tyrant. I never activated a Castle Locthwain. And, like, their various ETB tapped conditions made it so that multiple of my opening hands were awkward or that I couldn't make plays that I otherwise could have. So while I get wanting to squeeze utility lands into this deck list, I think 4 of these is too many, especially since they don't work well together. I think the tools that I had access to in the sideboard were reasonable. Like, I felt like I had good tools to bring in for matchups. I'm not going to claim that I sideboarded perfectly, because I definitely had some questions that I would need more reps with the deck to know. But generally speaking, thumbs up here. Folks, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And remember, if you need paper Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya! And just as kind of one last generic thank you, I'm recording this immediately after I kicked off my fundraiser for Trans Lifeline. And About 5 hours into the event, we had already raised about $2,000, so that's really dope. I'll post an announcement of some kind when the drive is officially over, which will probably have already been over by the time this video releases because time is weird. But thanks, folks. It means a lot to a lot of people, myself included.